Welcome everyone to the joint Cascade Speakeasy and Electric Toasters meeting, the only two Toastmasters clubs in the world working in tandem to bring you exciting speeches each and every week. But is that really why we collaborate together? Not really. I'll tell you what the truth is. It's because no man is an island, and we need the support of and be supported by our fellow man in whatever we do. So I'm going to ask all of you to please support me at this point in time, to please mute yourselves and focus on the, hold on just a second, focus on the flag and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to introduce a very special Toastmaster this evening, who will be starting on July 1 as our club president. Please welcome Jackie Graybill. Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I'm so excited that you nominated me, Rob. I can't tell you how excited I was when I got that email from Mary. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. I'm so excited. And I'm glad that Dory and Nick are popping in as well. So I have a question for you, Lloyd. The topic for today, the theme is no man is an island. So my question for you is, does that mean women can be an island? I just had to throw that in there.
More of I think most women I know are islands.
I think you're muted, Lloyd.
We have a lot of ice around the perimeter.
Jackie, it means whatever you say it means, okay?
For icebergs, we will sink your ships.
I'm glad that everybody's here today, and I would love to introduce our illustrious general evaluator who has an amazing vocabulary. Pat, I just have to say, whenever you speak, I'm sitting here like this, waiting for any juicy, yummy words that you say because they're amazing, and I love listening to you. Take it away, Pat.
That has to be the most eloquent compliment I have ever had in my entire life. Oh my God. Now, is Ron Slabaugh here? Is
Yes.
Ron here? Okay,
Yeah.
because you know, the role of the general evaluator is to look at all of the components of the meeting and give feedback on the strengths and those just little things that might need to be tweaked. And so our first evaluator is Ron Slabaugh. Ron, did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did.
Okay,
Yes, perfect.
Just like to be sure. After being an educator for 50 years, I'm pretty good on people's names, but I don't like to slaughter them. So I'm happy that you like it. And you will be evaluating Kathleen McNulty's speech. Okay, then we have Lloyd, who we all know. And Lloyd will be evaluating Mary's speech. The timer will be Rob. Rob, can you give us an update on what's going to be expected for each of the speeches, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Madam General Evaluator. So this evening, we have two speeches. I believe they're going to be the same time length. The reason that I am the timer is to make sure that the speakers stick within the allotted time that they're allowed. Because if you go beyond those timelines, then you're going to lose your audience and you're going to feel like a single man on a deserted island. And you don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do at this point is tell you that for the 7-minute speeches, at 5 minutes, I will produce the green vegetable patch. At 6 minutes, the yellow vegetable patch. And at 7 minutes, the red vegetable patch. Later on, we will also have table topics, And those are 1 minute to 2 minutes. So at 1 minute, I will produce the green. At 1.5, the yellow. And at 2 minutes, the red. And at the end of the meeting, I'll let everybody know how they did. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. Now we need to hear from our grammarian, Ian. Can you share with us your information?
Yes, tonight I will be keeping track of not only interesting ways that people format their languages, their sentences in the English language, and I'll also be keeping track of the word of the night. And I thought that the word of the night would be fitting as the past tense of maroon. So the past tense of maroon is marooned. Good luck, everybody. I'll be keeping track. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Ian. And last but not least is our awe counter, who will be Eric Stepper.
Good evening. My role tonight will be counting, which is all of the filler words we use in clumsy transitions. We want to try and keep from saying the ums, ers, other filler crutches like, you know, repetitions, and starting sentences with and, well, but. So we seem to, as a club, be pretty good about catching the ahs, but we seem to start a lot of sentences with and, well, so's, and run things together. So I'm going to be keeping track of that. I've already started, and I will give a report when called upon. Thank you, General Evaluator.
Thank you very much. And now I will retreat to my own personal special island, which is Maui. I love Maui, and turn this back over to the Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Our first speaker is Kathleen McNulty, and I am not going to leave her marooned without a correct introduction. I printed it off, and this is her introduction. Kathleen is working on the Innovative Planning Pathway. The purpose of this project is to practice the skills needed to connect with and engage an unfamiliar audience with a speech topic that is unfamiliar to most of the audience. She will do this with a 5 to 7 minute speech about summer learning loss entitled, I have to say this with a British accent, Frolic or Focus? What is a student to do for summer break? Kathleen McNulty.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As we get started today, what I would like you to do for the very first thing is to think and reflect on the favorite summer that you had as a youth. It might be a whole summer. It might be the summer you were marooned on a desert island. It could be a certain activity of a specific summer. What is your fondest memory? Rob is with us tonight, and Rob has done an icebreaker before, so I know he has some very juicy memories of childhood. He's already exposed a few. I know he's having some fun thoughts now. For me, I spent a lot of time playing kickball and being outdoors. It was before electronics, back in the dark ages. Heading down the street to what we called the creek, which was just a narrow stream that ran through the neighborhood where all the kids would gather. As you've reflected on this, have any of you thought that your best summer experience was summer school? No. That is what I was expecting. Parents these days are faced with a dilemma in the summer, especially for those of you, Vicki might be one of them, who have younger kids, and you're trying to figure out what to do in the summer. My kids are a little older now. They're college age, but I can still remember feeling guilty every summer because I didn't have something academic for them to do, because they would suffer this learning loss that was going to occur that had been promoted in lots of studies. especially a very old study in 1980 of some Baltimore students. The dilemma then for the parent is, should we frolic or should we focus on our academic studies? Before we talk about the research, which is somewhat interesting, I would just go intuitively to you and ask you, if you were doing an activity that took effort and you stopped it for 3 months and then you restarted it, would there be some recovery time? You would have to make up for lost time. I think intuitively that seems right. Many of us are many of us no longer at the fitness gym anymore? And right, about 8 weeks from now, 6 to 8 weeks from now, we're all going to go back. Maybe, we hope, we're motivated to go back. And then it's going to be a while before we get to where we were. Steve, I know, is a cyclist. And if he stopped cycling for 3 months, it would take him a while to get back to where he was. I took a hike yesterday up a very steep slope. And as I was gasping my way to the top, knees aching, I thought, it would be bad to have knee surgery. I'd be out of this for 3 months and I would never catch up again. I think we can probably all agree that intuitively, there's something to this learning loss. If you're doing something that requires effort, you stop it for a while, then you have to restart it, especially if you're not motivated, that there can be some challenges there. Our intuition was overwhelmed by some research that was done in the 1980s, which showed these huge learning losses. That research has been subsequently debunked, but it still gets quoted in The Economist just last year. So families still have this idea that they have to do something and make this choice. There have been some other studies that have shown some learning loss. One of them by the Northwest Evaluators Group showed, interestingly, 50% learning loss in 7th grade math, which I thought makes a lot of sense because 7th grade math is really hard. 6th to 7th grade is when math gets really hard. I thought that made some sense, that you could lose that much over the summer. What then is a parent to do? Should they choose the frolicking or should they choose the focus? My advice is they should think independently and hoe their own row. Do what works best for their family. I think the top priority is family first. What works best for your family? That might be a vacation with family, a camping trip, lots of outdoor activities, trips to the swimming pool. I think that is really a great summer. And families, if they want, there's lots of learning you can insert into those activities. There are loads of websites that have all of these ideas about how you can teach kids things while you're shopping, while you're driving in a car, all the activities that while you're camping, all the summer activities that you would be doing. As a parent, if you spend about 5 minutes concentrating on it, you could come up with a bunch yourself. What about the parent that does want to insert some kind of academic activity into the summer? They have a lot of choices. This year, the local school districts had summer school. There's free activity on the Khan Academy, which is a great website where kids can go and learn if they're motivated. There are also organizations like my organization, Tutor Doctor. We create the structure and the motivation. That's an option for some families. It depends on the family and their choice. The one piece of advice I would give, based on my experience with my business, is that if your student is already behind, and you know they're behind, summer's a great time to catch up. It doesn't take a whole lot of time in terms of hours. It does require a little motivation, but students can really gain ground over the summer and be super excited when they go back to school and motivated. We started out with a question, and the question was, what was your memory of the very best summer you had? I'm going to leave you with a question, and that question is, how can you make this summer the very best summer you've ever had? Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. That was so thoughtful and intriguing. And as a piano teacher for 21 years, I was thinking about what happens to my students that stop for the summer and that come back. They definitely have a little bit of that catching up time, but those that take a little bit during the summer, it's different. So I appreciate that you had so many wonderful statistics in your speech. It was very, very excellent. We're glad you came back. Next up, we have Mary Syrie.
Jackie,
And-
let's,
Yes.
let's throw in a minute for people to do comments.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lloyd. Would our timer, Rob, put a minute on the clock, please?
The clock has started.
Fantastic. And if you go ahead and send your chats individually to Kathleen, that would be wonderful.
As I finished, Jackie, I had this horrible idea. What if I had been on mute the whole time? I had to do it all over again.
We would have let you know.
Yeah, given that I have to review you, I certainly would have let you know, because I do not read lips all so well.
Madam Toastmaster, that's 1 minute.
Thank you so much for not marooning us without time to put our comments in the chat. Our next speaker, Mary Syrie, is going to tell a story. It is a true story of her experience having a mentor early in her technical career. He had all the traits of a successful mentor. He was knowledgeable, supportive, respectful, and dependable. But he was missing just one trait, and that made all the difference. Please welcome Mary Syrie as we listen to her speech about Dennis. Mary Syrie, their speech, Dennis.
Mute, Mary.
Thank you, Jackie. I'm going back to the year 1985. I was 32 years old and a recent college graduate, starting a new career as a software engineer. I lacked experience and I lacked confidence, but I managed to land a job at a small startup company that I'll call PathPro. Their product was a software package that provided quality assurance reporting for pathology labs. Now, my first career was as a medical laboratory technician, and I had worked in pathology labs for 5 years. So this was the perfect job for me. It was my dream job. The pathologist who ran PathPro partnered with a guy named Dennis to run the software company. Dennis developed the QA software, and he did all the sales and marketing as well. This guy was a natural salesman. Dennis could sell hairspray to a bald man and make the guy feel good about it. When I came on board, they had about 6 installations. Now, in addition to the quality assurance, the QA product, there was an accounts receivable and billing module. My job was to maintain the AR software and support the customer base. In those early days, Dennis became my mentor. To get me up to speed, he trained me on the AR logic, the billing cycles. He introduced me to the customer base. And what I liked about him is that his door was always open. He was a great mentor. He had the knowledge and experience to guide me. And he was an optimistic, happy person. He just made you smile and feel good. And what an engaging storyteller he was. What I liked the very most about Dennis was that he was always polite and he was respectful. I was the new kid on the block and I had a lot of dumb questions to ask, but Dennis never admonished me for asking dumb questions. I felt safe and comfortable asking him anything. But Dennis wasn't perfect. There were a few little cracks in his shiny veneer. Frankly, his computer code was infested with bugs and the quality was bad. I talked to Dennis about his coding quality and he admitted to me that yes, I've made some mistakes. There's a lot of bugs in it, but Mary, I just didn't have time to go back and fix everything and correct it. I'm so busy with sales, and that's why you are so important to this company. Well, I was flattered about that. I felt pretty important, and I accepted his recognition of his faults. As the sales increased, our company grew. We expanded our technical staff so that we could write version 2 of the QA software. As I worked my way through the bug list, I got to start writing specifications, requirements, and I got to train new users. My first training assignment was in Dallas, Texas. Dennis flew with me down there to get me set up, and then he continued on to some sales calls over in Florida. This meant that we spent 6 hours together on an airplane. 6 hours, me and Dennis, from Seattle to Denver, Denver to Dallas, me listening to Dennis's stories. Here's what I remember. He had saved the lives of about at least 6 people in separate events. Dennis had performed CPR. He'd performed the Heimlich maneuver. He even did an emergency tracheotomy on a child who was choking to death in a restaurant. Dennis had built a multi-million-dollar company, and he had to apply for bankruptcy when his partner, his best friend, embezzled all the money and left Dennis penniless. And the one that really put me over the top was a family vacation in Hawaii. Dennis was a good, strong swimmer, and he was about 100 yards from shore, floating and relaxing, when he looked up, and a great white shark dorsal fin was coming right for him. Mary, I was so scared, he said. I flipped over, I swam as hard as I could, and I outswam the great white shark. Okay, that just kind of did it for me. I finally had to admit that Dennis had some pathology of his own. He was a pathological liar, and the company soon learned that the reason we made so many sales is that Dennis was making promises to customers for functionality that didn't exist, would never exist, and at that time was technically impossible. Dennis's deceit destroyed PathPro. We lost sales because of his wild promises. And once he was exposed, Dennis quit showing up for work. There were no new sales. There's no cash coming in. And eventually, the company ran out of money. PathPro was over. I don't know whatever happened to Dennis. Frankly, I haven't thought about him for years until I had to write this speech. This speech assignment was to talk about a time when I was a protege and the impact and importance of having a mentor. Well, Dennis made a big impact on all of us who worked at PathPro. But for a brief moment, Dennis was an effective mentor. He fulfilled Toastmasters' definition of what a mentor should be. He was experienced, he was positive, He was respectful to me, and he was dependable. He was all of these things, but he lacked the one overarching trait that effective leaders and good mentors must have. And that trait is ethics. This is the deal breaker quality. A person can be lacking in other areas like experience or even dependability and compensate for it. But if a person lacks integrity, they cannot be a good leader. They cannot be a good mentor. Dennis lied continually. He lacked ethics and he was careless. There's a lesson learned in this story of mentor gone wrong, and it's this. Dennis didn't need to lie. PathPro had an innovative product that would have been successful if it had been represented and managed in an ethical manner. My fellow Toastmasters, it's as simple as that. Just tell the truth. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much for that wonderful speech, Mary. What a story. Whew. I'll never think about the name Dennis the same way. Mr. Timer, would you give us a minute so we can put our comments for Mary individually in the chat?
The clock has started. That is 1 minute, Madam Toastmaster.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Timer. And now we come to the point in the meeting that we've all been waiting for. Table topics. Joyce can hardly contain herself. She's so excited. Mr. Table Topics Master, Steve Schwinn, what do you have for us today?
I've got some questions. No man is an island. I kind of like that. How'd you come with that, Lloyd?
I'm just a fan of classical British poetry, Steve. I mean, what can I say?
Darn it. If only I'd be more into British poetry, I'd have been able to craft some questions around it. I did listen to music back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, though. Simon and Garfunkel wrote a song, I Am a Rock, and in that song, they sing the refrain or a line in the song, a rock feels no pain, an island never cries. Christina, do you know the story behind that song, and can you share with us your interpretation of it?
Thank you, Steve. The story I know behind that song relates directly to my husband, Eric. When he was a youth, the song came out. It was one of his favorite songs. Every morning before school, he would close the door to his bedroom, turn the music up loud, and sing along with Simon and Garfunkel. I am a rock, I am an island. And then he would open his door. I heard this from his mother, not from him, incidentally. he would get his books and off he would go to school in rock and island mentality, not to be toyed with anyone around. As far as what Simon and Garfunkel meant by it, I couldn't tell you at all. But I can tell you that it meant a great deal to Eric when he was young, and it gave him the strength to go to school every day. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics.
It is a profound statement. One could spend hours and hours contemplating the nuances of what it means that no man can be an island. If someone told you, hey, old Joe across the street in that shuttered up old house over there, he hardly ever comes out, seems like a crotchety old fellow. He's an island. He appears to need no one. Lloyd, if someone told you that, would you have some compassion that climbed out of you and cross the street to see what's going on? Or would you take a callous approach to, if that's the way he wants to live, then leave him be?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. The problem with the notion that anyone can be an island is that we're not. And the serious reason I came up with this topic was that I was discussing the issue of wearing masks during this semi-shutdown that we have with some of my more conservative neighbors. And their assertion was that each one of us is indeed an island. That is, we get to decide what's important and what's not, and we have an absolute right to live the way we want. And I was trying to explain to them that that's not true, because in the example of the mask, for instance, we all have to share the air. If they were not breathing out, everything would be okay, I guess. And I think that's kind of what John Donne, the guy who wrote the poem in about 16 something or other, was getting at too. No man is an island separate unto himself. And he used the image that if the water washes away, all of the islands are actually connected. We just don't see that. And I think that's true. I don't think that anyone can be an island. I'm aware that there are people who have this crotchety, notion that you're describing, get off my lawn, I'm keeping your football type of thing. But I don't think that's an appropriate way to live, not if we all want to live in groups anyway. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Lloyd. Great answer. Dory, do you think that in reality, we none of us can really be an island in the long run? It would be unhealthy, is the likely understanding of that thought. At the same time, do you know, or do you think that there's a time when it's okay to be an island? And how would that look over the course of your existence or that of someone who you know?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics. I do not believe that everyone is an island, because we all need each other. Not only are we connected by the air, we are connected by energy. We are connected by the ground that we stand on. And whatever you do to your plants is going to affect a plant that affects another plant that affects another plant that's going to affect the grass that's going to affect the one in my yard. We all are connected. We all need each other some way, somehow. There are times I would like to think that I'm an island and I have my own little space where I just do all my stuff and just stay that way and just am left alone other than my boyfriend and my dogs. But I need them. I also need to talk to people. I am a ambivert, and if I don't talk to somebody other than him, he goes crazy. And I can talk a lot, but we all need each other, not only for the air, but for the connection that helps us to be compassionate. And so we should never be marooned on our own island. Thank you, Mr. Table Topic.
Nicely answered. Thank you. Stoicism, I think, is a big thing in this country, and everyone likes to think they're rough and tough. And the old saying is that it's lonely at the top in the context of business. Vicki, can you expound on that a little bit as to your thoughts of how life is for managerial folks up at the top, the CEO, how the phrase came to be commonly shared in society, that it is lonely at the top, and maybe that guy is something of an island up there, or not?
I most certainly can. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. It's lonely at the top. It can be. I know that when I was working at a company, one of the women who were a manager and was my manager kept asking to be my friend on Facebook. And I explained to her that if I work with people and we're not at the same level, I generally do not accept friend requests, just because the way work is nowadays they can watch what you are doing on Facebook. And it's not that I was putting anything out there that would be detrimental to my job. It's just that I felt that Facebook is personal and not part of the job. And so she took that and understood what was going on. And our relationship at work was one where we would be cordial and talk to one another. We ended up leaving the company at the same time. And we did go out for coffee and did find that we did have lots of mutual interests. And so then it became a part of us where we would go and meet for coffee. And after we had no longer been in the company for some time, and I realized our paths were going different ways, I put her on my Facebook page, and we were friends on that. And she realized that there wasn't anything special going on my Facebook page. It's just that it was mysterious to her because she was in a position to where she wasn't seeing everything that was going along. So it was lonely at the top for her because she wasn't able to have those connections. Mr. Table Topics Master.
How would you interpret this statement personally? How you view it as no man is an island? Just your personal interpretation, Nolan. It is Nolan, right? It's not Dory Nolan.
It's
Am I
Nick.
muted? If everybody's
Nick.
looking at me like I'm not making any noise.
Yeah, I'm Nick.
Nick. Okay, you know, I've thought to ask, is it Dory and Nolan or is it Dory Nolan?
It's Dory Nolan.
Okay, Nolan, there's your, or Nick, there's your question.
Yeah. Thank you, Topics Master. As far as whether or not a man is an island, I would have to agree. I like generally to be kind of the devil's advocate and turn assumptions and generally accepted truths on their head and challenge those kinds of things. But really, in this case, this is a tried and true statement in my view that we do depend on each other. You know, there's strength in numbers. Even those who try to isolate themselves will benefit from all the constructs of society and all the bricks that have been laid down before them, right? Even if you try to hole up in your house, you're going to order stuff from Amazon. You're going to watch stuff on TV. That is all by the grace of the good hands of your friends and neighbors that you don't want to talk to. So I think it's an illusion to think that you can live truly on your own and be content, be happy. And I'm glad that I have much of my life to share with others and people in my life to share with me.
Thank you, Nick. Joyce, do you know anyone who is, in your thinking, someone who believes they're an island, or is, in your interpretation, making a good effort to be an island, and how does that look for them?
My dad, when I was growing up, ate like the Cookie Monster, but I don't believe I know anybody who believed they were an island. Growing up in Stemelt Hill, I was pretty much close to feeling like I was an island, and I love that song from Simon and Garfunkel, Nothing on Bridge Over Troubled Water, but we got to stick to the topic. Being marooned in my own depression has made me realize that I really do need people. This is one of the reasons why I joined Toastmasters. I needed to talk to people and, most importantly, to listen. And I have learned so much about all of you, and the way that you speak has really encouraged me to go out of my comfort zone and learn how to speak more eloquently sometimes. God forbid, more than one syllable per sentence. Apparently, grunting is not the thing to do. No. I do appreciate being here, and it makes me less of an island and more of a human being. Thank you.
I can imagine living on the Stemelt Hill that you could potentially feel like your ship had been run aground and you were marooned, based on my experience with interactions with folks up there listing and selling real estate. It's just to clarify, the Simon and Garfunkel song talks about the pain associated with loving someone. And if I just hadn't, I wouldn't have had tears or pain in my heart. It's a cool song. And if you Google the lyrics and look at them more closely, it'll help you to understand the song. There's so many songs that we love the melody and the way the song plays out, but we don't really listen to the words and understand what the artist intended.
There is someone who had once famously said, since it's so famous, I cannot remember who said it, that's how I work, is when you're happy, you listen to the melody. When you're sad, you listen to the words.
Well, I'll take note of that. And herein ends table topics. I now return. You all look so happy about it. Huh.
You just make us happy.
You made us happy, Steve, because that was such a thought-provoking set of questions and thoughtful answers from everyone. And I especially loved the singing, Miss Christina. Thank you for adding that. And I'm so glad that Dory and Nick got a chance to share as well. And I'm so happy that none of us are an island in Toastmasters right now. We are all in this together on Zoom. Thank you for being here. This is the portion of our meeting where our general evaluator takes the mic, so to speak, and introduces the evaluation portions.
It is my pleasure to introduce to you all Ron, who will be evaluating Kathleen's speech. Ron, you're up.
Get on mute.
You're on mute.
Hello,
So I'll
are
repeat
you
that.
out there?
As I was listening to folks' table topics there, I was thinking, and of course watching people's faces and expressions, if there's anybody in this group that would be an island, I think I would be the closest to it, because this is a pretty good group. There's some generally happy people here. I look particularly at Mary and Kathleen. They have these natural smiles on their face. Joyce, a little bit of the same thing going on. I don't. I look at myself here and I really have to try to smile so I don't look like a grump sitting here. But this isn't really about me. It's about me trying to give Kathleen a good evaluation of her speech. Let's go ahead and refamiliarize ourselves with the purpose of this speech, and that's for the member, Kathleen in this case, to practice the skills needed to connect with an unfamiliar audience. Now, Kathleen, I know you and I are certainly unfamiliar. I've never met you in person. I don't know to what extent you're familiar with the group here, but I think you did a pretty good job, particularly in selecting the topic. It's a topic that everybody should be able to relate to. I certainly think everybody here has had their summer breaks and when they were children and had to figure out what to do during that summer break. I liked the content. I liked the subject matter. I liked that you had a pretty clear introduction, a body, and conclusion. Your transition into your conclusion, in my opinion, was excellent, and that you tied it back to a question in the intro and then your question in the conclusion. And of course, that question being, what can we do to make this our best summer? And geez, that's something on all of our minds, because this so far isn't starting out to be our best summer. I like that you're able to tell some personal stories within your presentation, and just for example, describing your hike and gasping your way to the top, knees aching. It was very vivid, and that's just one example of your descriptive language, and it helped me certainly able to visualize specifically what your spoken words were describing to us. Brought in some research. I think with any good presentation, if you can reference some research, that's good. And you reference some 80s research on learning losses from a 3-month break. You said it ended up being bunk, but hey, so what? You went ahead and shared that with us anyway. And I think it just added to the effect. As far as what's best, you were insistent, and I agree. It's, you know, your best choice is for you and your family. It's an individual decision. You mentioned the Khan Academy. Interestingly, I happened upon the Khan Academy on YouTube here not so long ago, so I was familiar with and could relate to that. One thing that surprised me, I was really taken in and watching your presentation, and then Rob goes and holds up the green, which meant that we were 5 minutes into an up to 7-minute presentation. Holy smokes, seems like we're just getting started here. And is Kathleen gonna leave us marooned? Is she gonna have to get through the rest of this as quickly as she can? But you didn't. And I don't know if you were surprised when the green went up or not. Most people are. But I felt that you did get through the rest of your presentation without hurrying. It was just fine. We'll get the timer's report. I think you were right up knocking on the door of 7.5 minutes or so, but I certainly liked it. You didn't leave us marooned, and it was good. The only opportunity for improvement I would see, and that is just me thinking that the speech was just getting started at the 5-minute mark, would be perhaps some sort of a transition from that introduction into the body, something a little bit more definite to help us understand that you were indeed moving out of the introduction. But other than that, it was a great topic. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Lloyd, let's hear from you with your evaluation of Mary's speech, please.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. This was an interesting speech. This is Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring, which is a level 2 speech, which is common to all of the paths. Eventually, all of you will have to do it. And it's an oddly structured project in terms of the way they set it up. Mary's assignment was to talk about a time when she was a protege. It can be any time from her life, and it doesn't have to be from a Toastmasters perspective, which this was not. I thought this was really an excellently done example of this speech. To start off with, what did you excel at? It asks on the evaluation form. As usual, your facial expressions, your vocal variety, all of the mechanical aspects of the speech were really first rate, I thought. The gestures were good too. That's a trick when you're on video like this, because it seems so unnatural. This is where your stand-up desk pays off, because you can stand there and do gestures as if it were a real speech. I was going to say, as if it were an in-person speech, and you took full advantage of that. My favorite gesture was when you did the shark fin, talking about Dennis out swimming the great white on the surf in Hawaii. You avoided the obvious trap of sticking your hand in front of your face to do that. I thought that was really an exceptional gesture. I've never seen anything quite like that. The strength of this speech, though, for me, was the way you structured the content. There was a tremendous narrative arc that served to support the point you were making, that a leader or a mentor who lacks ethics is not a good mentor, regardless of his or her skills. And I thought the story was perfectly structured to show that. You avoided the trap in storytelling of throwing in way too many extraneous details. There were no extraneous details. Every detail you had supported the basic point you were trying to make, and I thought it was done really, really well. It asked me to name something you might work on. This is really picky, but it's the only thing I could come up with. There were a couple of times when you pushed your gestures toward the camera. If you watch yourself on video, you'll see that. And it has kind of a Japanese monster movie effect to it, if you see what I mean. And so it's something to be aware of. I had never really thought of that before, but it appears that on video, most of the gestures we're going to have to make, we have to be careful to put them on a plane, I think, more or less at the front of our body, as opposed to reaching toward the camera. To challenge yourself, just more story speeches like this one. I thought this was first rate. I'm looking forward to hearing some more. Madam General Evaluator.
Now we'll take a look at time. How did people do?
Okay, I don't want anyone to feel like they've been marooned, because what I'm going to do is do the timing in reverse. So tonight, we had our evaluators. Lloyd's evaluation was 2 minutes, 55 seconds. Ron, 4 minutes, 4 seconds. Table topics, Joyce, you were 1:20. Nick, you were 1:19. Vicky, you were 1:52. Dory Nolan, you were 1:29. Lloyd, you were 1:28. Christina, you were 1:27. Mary, you were 7 minutes and 40 seconds. Kathleen, you were 7 minutes and 28 seconds. Both of those speeches were spot on, in my opinion. And that's my report, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Very concise, very thorough. Ian, how about your grammarian's report?
Thank you. I didn't hear anything that was really linguistically, architecturally exuberant tonight, but I heard some really descriptive things. Kathleen, you said, should we frolic? You then, a couple sentences later, said, as I was gasping. And both of those sentences were super visual. Immediately, we'd be able to transport ourselves as the listener to the steep hill that you were gasping up and your knees were in pain. And then a short while later, you said something that was pretty deep. and allowed me to reflect on a lot of things just instantaneously. You mentioned hoe their own row. What a great statement. I like that one a lot. Mary, this one's kind of personal. You talked about this guy being able to sell hairspray to a bald man. I love that. You also had a couple of words that I have not heard in quite a while. You said admonished me, and you mentioned Dennis's deceit. And I thought that the Dennis's deceit was just a good combo. Nice job. Nick, I like the phrase, the grace of the good hands of your neighbors. Something to remember is that we all have good hands and we should all be graceful with them. Nice job with that one. Joyce, I love Cookie Monster, ate like a Cookie Monster. I like that one. And Lloyd, the last real visual thing that I picked up tonight was you said the tremendous narrative arc. And that was a great statement, followed up closely by Japanese monster movies. Tonight's use of the word of the night, and I apologize for not giving a description of what the word of the night actually meant. I was sidetracked as I was getting started here, but Rob used it once, Joyce used it once, Dory used it once, Kathleen used it once, Jackie used it twice, and Ron, please smile because you tied for first place and used it twice as well. Nice job, everybody. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. Last but not least, we have our awe counter. Eric, what did you find out?
I am fond of ands, and I collect ands, and I have a couple of fellow and farmers tonight. Had over 5. Mary had over 5. Lloyd had over 5. And there were a couple others that started sentences in properly with and. Christina was clean. Joyce, you had 1 and. Rob, you were clean. Lloyd, you also had probably 9 or so ahs. Jackie had 1 and. Pat was clean. Good job. Clean had a speech and I didn't find anything on her. Steve had 4 uhs and an and. Dory had an really nice one, and 2 ands. Nikki had 2 uhs and an and a so. Ian, I didn't see anything. Good job. Ron had 4 uhs and 3 ands. That's my report.
Thank you very much. For the overview, I never cease to be amazed as how we progress in this progress of doing our meetings by Zoom. People are becoming more and more skilled in terms of their gestures. Both of the major speakers, Kathleen and Mary, used gestures that we could see. The one thing for Mary, there just was a little bit of an over-reliance on the left hand and moving it from this to this. But other than that, wonderful gestures to enhance it. And that particular speech really engaged us as an audience by starting it with a question and then ending it with a question. You know, what did you do about this? And what are you going to do about this? It really engaged us. I think that was really important. As for Mary, what a story. What a story to see that this gentleman was what we were going to perceive as an ideal mentor, and then find out later that he was a jerk, that he lacked ethics. It really came as a surprise to us. Her vocal variety was excellent, and again, the gestures were wonderful. Steve's selection of questions for table topics were very challenging, and I was pleased at the poise with which people responded to them, actually, because they were thought-provoking and they weren't ones that you could just whip out an answer. And again, the responders used good hand gestures. I'd like to thank Dory and Nick for joining us and for participating. You can see what an inclusive group we are. We just drew you right in and had you do our thing, and you just handled it just perfectly. The evaluators done very, very professionally. Oh, let me go back to Dory. Dory taught me a new word, and I'm going to look it up. I've never heard the word ambivert, if I heard that correctly. So I'm going to look it up because it's not a word I've ever heard before. The evaluators, again, very, very detailed, very professional, validating, and with the handling of suggestions done in a diplomatic but very constructive kind of a way. I really liked at the very end Eric's term "and farmers," even though I didn't sin tonight. And farmers, people who say and so a lot. Overall, another really dynamic, professional kind of a meeting. It makes one happy to belong to this group of people. And that's all I have to say about that. So I will return it back to the president. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. That was a great comprehensive report on the meeting this evening. What I would like to do at this point is I would like everyone to please send their choice for the winner of the speech, Vicki, if you would please. And while you're doing that, Lloyd, do you have any announcements or words of wisdom for us this evening?
Yeah, one quick thing. This past Saturday was the District 9 Club Officer Training. I'm pleased to announce that both of our clubs achieved the minimum, which was 4 officers trained. 7 would have been ideal, but 4 will do the trick. And the Speakeasy had 4 and the Toasters had 5. So we've done it. And I'd also like to congratulate Vicki. Vicki is the incoming District 9 Program Quality Director. So she was primarily responsible for organizing the training. Excellent job, Vicki.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lloyd.
Who are we sending our votes to again? I missed that.
Send it to Vicki.
Vicki, okay, thank you.
Pat, did you have your hand raised? I know, Eric, you have your hand raised.
No, I was simply validating Vicki's role. I was proud of her and happy for her.
Wonderful. Eric, you have something to share.
Welcome, Dory and Nick. And as an advantage of this club, this is taped. So hopefully, Lloyd, you'll send them the email and you can watch back your table topics. It's a very, very good way to learn about how you speak.
Yep. Jackie, if you send me their email address sometime before tomorrow, then I'll send that link to them too.
Wonderful. Vicki, do we have a winner this evening?
I just sent it to you.
The winner is Mary. Congratulations. Yay. Well, this is kind of a difficult meeting this evening because this is my last meeting as club president. The good news is Ian has agreed to be president for his club for the next year. Congratulations, Ian. And of course, that's not true. And Jackie, next week, it's all your baby. So it'll be fun. Looking forward to it. And any last comments from anyone on the call this evening?
Thanks, Rob.
If not, Ian, you have something you want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for all your enthusiasm that you've provided this shared group. I think you've done a bang-up job as the president and the host of these meetings, and looking forward to seeing what Jackie's going to bring to the table here beginning next week.
Yeah, great. Good. All right, everyone. And thank
you. Here. Sorry.
That's all right.
Nick had his hand up, I think.
Perfect. Dory and Nick, thanks again for coming. We hope to see you again sometime.
Yes.
I think it's Dory, it's Nolan.
For Jackie being her first meeting. And also, I would invite you guys to visit ours, but our club meetings are at 7:30 our time on Saturday morning. So that would be 5:30 in the morning for you.
Ooh.
So,
Yeah.
Dory, we won't be there.
I didn't think so. But hey,
Oh, no, we'll be there in our dreams.
there you go. Well, if you want, I am going back to school, and I am in a communications class, and I am doing a demonstration speech Thursday that I'm taping. So if anybody's interested, let Jackie know, and she can send me your email. I'm going to be
Joyce,
making.
you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say that I'm interested in the speech.
Got it. Great. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We will see you again next week. Be safe and healthy.
Oh, and Nick, what did you want to say?
He said goodbye.
Oh.